Hi, my name is Darren, and this is a lockdown story. Case number 5. Zimbabwe School UFO Landing, 1994. The children and teachers of the Ariel School on the outskirts of Harare, the capital of Zimbabwe, started the morning of September 16, 1994 like any other day. The first morning lessons took place, and, as the day grew warmer, both the children and teachers began to look forward to their mid-morning break. The school comprised of 62 children, aged between 6 and 12, from many ethnic and cultural backgrounds, a cross-section of Zimbabweans from several tribes, Asian children, and white children. 10 a.m. arrived and the 62 school children headed outside, while the school staff, except for one, headed to the staff room for a meeting. The staff member who was outside became swamped with children, claiming that they had seen 3 or 4 disc-shaped objects approach the long grass scrubland adjacent to the school playing field, and that one of them had landed. The younger children were quite upset and frightened, but the older ones were more curious and had stayed closer to watch what was happening. The account got more bizarre. The children claimed to have been approached by 2 short, odd-looking beings, described as having thin arms, thin legs, long heads, and eyes as big as rugby balls. Some of the black children thought the short little beings were Zimbabwe, or Tokoloshes, the evil goblins of local folklore, and became scared that they would be eaten. However, the beings stopped their approach and stared towards the group of children instead. Their eyes seemed to grip the attention of the children who saw them, and many of them reported that, as the beings stared at them, they experienced images projected into their minds of environmental and war destruction, as if they were being warned of possible long-term damage to the planet in the future. The children also stated that it seems that the beings took their thoughts and feelings from them, but meant them no harm, and no harm occurred. The beings then returned to their craft, which then moved out of view. The school staff, none of whom had witnessed the encounter, dismissed the stories as childish fantasies and a game that the kids were playing on them. And so lessons continued throughout the day, but the children refused to stop talking about what they had seen. Finally, the school day ended and the pupils were sent home. The following morning, however, the school's phone started ringing, and the staff were swamped with questions from parents as to why their children were so disturbed by events the previous day. And it soon became apparent that something extraordinary may have happened. The story was picked up by the local news and came to the attention of the BBC bureau chief of Zimbabwe, who interviewed the children. His interview led to the story being picked up by several news agencies, and eventually it came to the attention of an award-winning Harvard behavioral scientist, Dr. John Mack, who travelled to the school to carry out his own investigation. Dr. Mack spent a considerable amount of time speaking to each child in depth individually, filming each interview, asking the children to draw what they had seen, carefully noting their behaviour and cataloguing their stories. And then he came to a remarkable conclusion. The children were not making up the story. Further, and possibly related information also started to appear. 2 days earlier, on Wednesday 14th of September 1994, between 2050 to 2105, astronomers across the region had reported a meteor shower that was seen by thousands of people as far afield as Zambia and Botswana. A local UFO investigator, however, received dozens of reports that the meteor shower was observed by locals as being a capsule-like fireball trailing fire and flanked by 2 smaller capsules. The investigator also received several reports of alien sightings around the same time. A young boy and his mother reported a daylight sighting, a trucker who had seen strange beings on the road at night, and several other instances from around the region. So usually, at this point in a story, I would offer possible alternative explanations for the event that has occurred. However, this time I will not be doing so, and here's why. Despite the cultural differences between the children, Dr. Mack stated that the accounts were extremely consistent in detail. The message relayed to the children was recounted back with remarkable clarity, wonder and thought in a manner not consistent with that of a fantasy or game. Indeed, the children, when speaking about it, seemed to be acting beyond their years. None of the children broke ranks. There was no lavish embellishment, no particular ringleader could be identified, and no claims of anyone seeing more than the other, which is unusual when dealing with children in a group. In fact, independent researchers who have viewed the interviews have drawn the same conclusion as Dr. Mack. They are impressed by the sincerity and sense of truth emanating from the children when they discuss what they had witnessed. Although the account was famous at the time, it has, like so many stories of its kind, disappeared into folklore and urban legend. Unfortunately, John Mack died in 2004. However, some 20 years after the original event, a documentary maker named Randall Nicholson was asked to follow up the story. Nicholson visited as many of the witnesses as he could find, all now in their late 20s and early 30s, and it became apparent that their stories were still consistent and had not changed. No one withdrew their account or confessed to any possible kind of hoax, and it became clear that the event had made a significant impact upon them and their lives. So, only the witnesses of the events of 16th of September 1994 truly know what they saw. It is evident and independently verified, however, that they had an extraordinary experience that affects them to this day. This case remains as one of the largest mass witness events to a UFO landing and is, in my opinion, one of the most intriguing UFO events in history. The case remains open. Next time, we take a visit to the heartland of the United States of America in 1968 for something that is either very, very sinister or full of hope. Thank you for listening. Stay safe. Goodbye.